So, in suicide prevention and frontline mental health work, excellence in service is a little bit of a taboo. And today we're going to talk about how we can overcome that taboo and really lean into the reflective practice framework by systematizing that framework to add layers of benefits on top of the standards, like keeping a reflective practice journal, for example. Welcome back to Set with Courage, where we take a system theory lens. We look at system dynamics in order to solve big, tough problems, right? Like suicide prevention and the TikTokification of the world, and so many other things. So, today I'm going to show you how I set out a standard paper journal to systematize reflective practice in a simple way. It should be about a 15-minute video. So yeah, you can see here, this is just your standard book. And we're going to pretend that this is the first page. So I'll pause this, lay it out on the page, and then show you what I've done and talk through it. So cool, thanks for joining. So page number 1. I can't really see that very well. I'll just read it. It says, my reason why. All right, so I've got a page number in the top corner over here. And page number 1, I've written a few questions here to answer. What does this work mean to me? Why do I do it? And what do I want for this in 3, 5, 10 years? And so this is the first page of the reflective practice journal. And the reason why this is really important to put that on page number 1 is because we get what we aim for. All right. If you learn anything about the reticular activating system, then and woo-woo manifestation type stuff, then you really do want to set out the intention. You'll know that you really want to set out the intention because you'll end up with exactly what you're looking for. The better that you can define what you're looking for, the better that you'll discover it and find it, basically. Maybe that's external stuff, maybe I really want a job. I really want to be working in the psychology with my own clinical practice and to have 10 years time from now to have really high quality suicide prevention and listening skills based on my time volunteering. Perhaps that's what it means to you. Maybe it's more of a state of being. Maybe it's not so externally driven, and maybe it's more like, I just want to be happy. I want to feel like I'm doing something meaningful and have something that every week I know that I can look forward to, where I'm going to be able to make the world a bit better. Maybe I want to give back in the way that other people have given to me. Whatever that means for you, right here on the first page. Alrighty, so now we have the reason why on page 1. This I would recommend making it pretty, right? Make it appealing. You want to throw some colors in there and stuff like that. I'm just bashing this together really quickly, and that's actually the reason why I use. You can see it's grid paper, because I do like to make stuff pretty. For example, let me just flip back and show you. Right, I like to make stuff like that where it's like map out an idea, make it kind of like splash. So yeah, so this is page number 1. Make it pretty. You could have like a block here to answer one thing. You could have a block here, maybe like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or even just something as simple as you could put a poem here, right? You could copy and paste a image of one of your favorite poems, like the Starfish poem. That gets me every time. If you don't know what the Starfish poem is, then I'm gonna upload a thing. Click wherever it is, because yeah. So on page 2 we've got it left empty. You can see there it's page 02. So page 2 is empty, right? Page 1 we've got the tally. We've got the reason why, my reason why. Page 2 is empty. Now page 3, tally of contents. Same principle, right? Maybe you want to make that the heading and make it really gorgeous or whatnot. I'm just bashing it together, but so this is where the reflective practice journal becomes a bit systematized, right? It gets a couple of layers of sophistication that really help develop reflective practice and it makes it very easy for you in the future, looking back a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, to have a really smart way to map your whole journey, developing your skills. So what this looks like, what are we looking at over here? We've got the page number again, page 3. And the reason why we're putting the page numbers on every page will become apparent very shortly, if it isn't already. So we have the date, right? The hours, the vibe. These are all these different columns. What's that one? Page, right? So page number. So you can see that this entry for this date and these 4 hours, this entry, this one along here, will constitute one shift. It's a summary of one shift, volunteering at a crisis support or at a hospital, mental health hospital, whatever it is that you do. Here is a did well column, and here's a next time column. So I'll quickly read them out. We've got the date is the 3rd of the 6th, 23, so that's obviously the shift. And then the hours, 4. Maybe you want to put time instead, right? And just calculate it. But I think 4 hours is the really valuable info. But it might even be handy to have the info of like, yeah, started at 3 a.m., finished at 7 a.m., you know, or whatever info. That might be handy to have too. So the vibe is a subjective ranking of when you're finished with your shift, you just rank your vibe of how it went, right? The page, it starts on page 6, and then did well. I've got active listening here, asked suicide, right? So there's 2 things that came up that actually went well during the chat. And then next time, work on empowering and validation. So that's the basic of the tally of contents. Now, some of that, you might have some questions after hearing that and seeing that, such as, for example, that's information for the end of the shift though, right? So the way that it works is you write out this format on this page, and then you would only fill in the date and the page number to begin with. And you would skip at the beginning of your shift, right? So you can see it starts on page 6. So we're going to go from page 3. We've already written here page 4 and page 5. So then we're going to skip to page 6. And on page 6 is where the actual shift reflective practice journal entry lives, right? So I'm just going to scribble and see you in the future. All right, so here we are on page 6 in the future, and we've got, it says morning shift up the top. So what's happened is I've clocked on, I've cracked open my reflective practice journal, and I have written the first thing, I've written the date, right? The date and the page, and that's all, and the rest of those fields are blank at the moment. Now I've turned over to page 6, and I'm starting to write stuff as I go through my shift, right? So the first little bit here, first convo did okay, so I'm reflecting afterwards. I've just got 10 minutes in between chats to just wrap up and think through what happened. Want to improve active listening, and then there's an arrow, more small talk prompts, another arrow, tell me more about, another arrow, how did that make you feel, another arrow, what happened since, right? So as I'm thinking through the conversation afterwards, I'm thinking like, oh, how did I got stuck and I just need more ways to prompt, right? So I'm like, as I'm sitting there waiting for the next person, or I'm just off, I'm not on ready yet, that's what I've written. I've just written a couple of prompts that, you know, maybe that I can use them throughout the shift. So it looks like now it's been another hour or something. There's some more stuff here. Fatherhood, grief, frustrated, upset, job, boss, divorce, so much loss. So there's general notes about what I'm hearing as I'm making sense of what this person is saying. And this applies obviously over the phone or whether I'm working on text. It applies either way. I'm just thinking about what it is that this person's giving me in terms of their story, their feelings, and I'm making sense of it myself. I'm processing it. Obviously, this is really important to know that if you're on a service like this, you're working with confidentiality, which means that you can't have anything identifying names, addresses, phone numbers, birthdays, all of that kind of stuff. Just don't write it down. You can write your own reflections about what you're hearing and the sense that you're making of it, so long as there's absolutely nothing identifying. And that is really, really important, because the confidentiality, the sanctity of the confidentiality is what actually enables services like Lifeline and other Good Samaritans, these suicide prevention and crisis support services. That's what enables them to exist. Is the anonymity and the confidentiality. So, and then you can see here that, so there, that's all just kind of standard writing. Let's see if that's going to autofocus. Can I just tap it? That's a bit better. So you can see here, there's just standard writing up here. And then there's this little symbol, like a hashtag. It's like a note to self, right? So the hashtag says, don't get lost in story. Remember here and now. So what that's representing is the hashtag little symbol means it'll be easy for me to find. As I'm reading through it and I'm taking, a bunch of notes. Maybe I write tons of notes. Maybe I don't. Maybe the notes can be separate, and this is just for reflective practice, right? Those little symbols, you can just put shortcuts in there for future you to look back and read it and say, oh, look at that, how interesting. I was getting lost. I was clearly getting lost in the story there, right? It was something really important to me on that day. And that's the secondary thing about this. Like, not only are you going to improve your practice big time and really just actually master the skills of validation, master the skills of empathy, of boundaries, of holding boundaries with professionalism and also authenticity. Your practice can get so much more sophisticated. As I was saying earlier, excellence is a bit of a taboo in the industry because it's a spiky, difficult conversation to have. Requires a lot of compassion for ourselves and self-awareness. But that's what we're here for. We're here to really bring that excellence and really encourage that excellence. So yeah, that's not only is it going to do that, help you develop these skills, but it's also going to help you kind of tell your own story of how you developed from one skill set to the next, of how you went from one stage to the next, of how did you master empowering people? How did you master offering compliments in such a way that they actually can accept them? You know how sometimes you might give a compliment and someone's just like, yeah, get that away from me. Well, yeah, I had to overcome that, and I had to learn really interesting, sophisticated ways to get around that. And rather than give you all of those answers of the things that I've learned, which I do a little bit of, I would much rather equip you and empower you to go on your own learning journey and really discover for yourself what is it that you want to focus on, and how is it that you can have intention with that focus and grow, basically. So now it's at the end of the shift, and I've clocked off. I've checked out with my supervisor and thanked them for being there for me and all the rest of it. Now I fill in the rest, right? I look back over it. I read back over my reflection from the shift over that entry on page 6, and just imagine that it's a full page of text now, and I'm going to write, what did I do well overall? Okay, yeah, I can see that I did active listening pretty well. The first chat, I wanted to practice more active listening, and then the next chat, I wrote down some prompts, and then the next chat, I applied it, and then the next one, I applied it again. So yeah, that's what I did well. I can say I'm going to give myself a pat on the back and say that I did that pretty well, and that our suicide as well, and every conversation, it's not something that we have to do, it's something that we want to do, and that is a mindset shift that does take a bit of time. The summary is that we're recognizing that we're not just following policy, we're actually destigmatizing suicide. it's a big deal. It's a big deal when we can learn how to internalize that conversation. But anyway, next time, want to work on empowering and validation, right? So, and that's going to fill out, right, over the next month, four more entries here. And then now what's going to happen is, actually, let me show you. I'll be right back. See you in the future. All right, we're back in the future. Now, it's been a month. So you can see here, I probably can't see it, but you just have to take my word for it. We've got the 12th, so the next week, they came back for another shift. It was 4.5 hours. They gave themselves 5 stars, so it's a good shift. Page 7, they tried to empower, right? That's what they did well, and next time, they still want to work on empowering. And you'll notice that that was what they wanted to focus on at the end of their last shift. They were like, what do I want to do next time? So this person used that to focus their attention during their shift, right? They started, they filled out the date, they filled out the page, and they saw what they wrote down the last time. And then they flicked over to page 6, which was last entry, and they read through it. And it refreshed their memory, and it made them think like, yeah, I really want to focus on, I really want to improve XYZ. And through that process of intentionality, reflection, intention, through that process, that's how they string their lessons together. And they thread it into this really beautiful skill set. Now, you see here that they took a break between, so it's over a week, it's actually over a month, it's a month and a bit before they hop back on. And they only gave themselves 2 ticks this time. I said stars earlier, I meant ticks. They only gave themselves 2 ticks this time, right? So it's been a while. It's been a while since they got on shift. Maybe they were busy with life, stuff happens. And so page 9, what they did well was very warm. They wrote down warmth. And what they'll do next time is have more silence and no interrupts. So now they're like, they've come back and they were like, maybe making up for the feeling of I haven't been around kind of thing. I feel like I'm forgetting how to ride this bicycle sort of thing. Maybe there's guilt there or whatever. And as a result, they were like jumping in all the time, trying to be really helpful, like, which, as you will probably have figured out, or as you will figure out soon enough, the more that we want to help sometimes, the less helpful that we actually become. So then 3 days later, they had another shift, and that was way better. So, they had that experience. They had that feeling of like, it's been so long, and now exams are over, so I'm gonna get back into it. And I'm gonna do a lot better. And yeah, same thing, right? So, you get the idea, basically. And another, like 4 days after that, they have another shift. So the last shift, they did empowerment really well, and what they want to do next time is work on referrals, right? It's like, yay, I got to the empowering point of the conversation where I actually did help someone all the way through the framework, and now they're like, set them off on their way. But I know that I could have done better on referrals in general, but especially with this one chap. And I was just nervous and kind of like fumbling and trying to work the referral finder, and I was just all over the place. So then the next time, that is what they did well, right? They did referrals well. But what they learned is they want to work on internal resources. It's like I actually jumped the gun a little bit, and I was so quick to refer people that I didn't ask them about their own stuff, their own ways of getting through stuff, and coping mechanisms and things like that. But the point, I think that I've belabored the point enough. You get the idea. It's a smart way of reflecting upon your practice in frontline mental health service provision. Whether, obviously, what I do is in suicide prevention and crisis support, but I think that you could do it on the front line anywhere, and even in other industries. But this, I'm just writing for you, for crisis supporters. So yeah, hope that helped. And let me know. Let me know if that was helpful. Let me know if that was a waste of time. I would love to hear anything, literally anything. Actually, making stuff like this can feel like throwing paper planes out the window sometimes. So if it's landing, then please let me know. Thanks. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see you soon.